wasn't going to fight. I dedicated this fight to him. I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just...
Welcome to our podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Salim, and today we will be discussing two of the most popular combat sports in the world, boxing and mixed martial arts, MMA. These two sports have a rich history and have produced some of the most iconic fighters and moments in sports history. So let's get started. Boxing has been around for centuries, and the first recorded boxing match dates back to 1681. But it wasn't until the late 19th and the early 20th centuries that boxing became a mainstream sport. In the early days of boxing, there were no weight classes, gloves, or rules, which led to some brutal and often deadly fights. However, over time, boxing began to evolve into a more organized sport with rules and regulations. In 1882, the Marquis of Queensberry rules were introduced, which included the use of gloves, weight classes, and a limit on the number of rounds. Boxing has produced some of the most memorable fighters in sports history, including Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. These fighters have left an indelible mark on the sport and have helped to popularize it around the world. While boxing has a long and storied history, MMA is a relatively new sport that only gained mainstream popularity in the last few decades. MMA, which combines elements of various martial arts, was first introduced in the United States in 1993 with the creation of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC. MMA has exploded in popularity in recent years, and the UFC is now one of the most lucrative and widely watched sports organizations in the world. MMA has produced its own set of iconic fighters, including Conor McGregor, Georges St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and Ronda Rousey. Boxing and MMA have produced some of the biggest and the most watched sporting events in history. In boxing, the most famous and lucrative event is the fight of the century between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, which took place in 1971. The fight was watched by an estimated 300 million people worldwide. In MMA, the biggest event is undoubtedly UFC 229, which took place in 2018 and featured a highly anticipated fight between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. The fight was watched by over 2 million people on pay-per-view, making it the most watched UFC event in history. Both boxing and MMA have produced some of the most iconic fighters in sports history. In boxing, Muhammad Ali is widely regarded as the greatest boxer of all time. Ali won the heavyweight title 3 times and was known for his speed, agility, and trash talking. In MMA, Conor McGregor has become one of the most popular and recognizable fighters in the sport's history. McGregor has won multiple titles in the UFC and is known for his flashy personality and outspoken demeanor. While both boxing and MMA have a rich history, the future of these sports is still very much in question. In boxing, there are concerns over the lack of marquee fighters and declining interest in the sport among younger audience. In MMA, the UFC continues to dominate the sport, but there are concerns over the safety of fighters and the long-term effects of the sports on their health. However, the UFC has taken steps to address these concerns by implementing stricter regulations and safety measures for fighters. Another factor that could impact the future of both sports is the rise of streaming services like DAZN and ESPN Plus, which have made it easier for fans to watch fights from anywhere in the world. This could lead to a shift in how fights are promoted and distributed and could impact the financial viability of both sports. Now let's take a look at some of the most notable fights and events in boxing and MMA in the recent years. In 2017, Floyd Mayweather Jr. came out of retirement to face UFC star Conor McGregor in what was one of the most highly anticipated fights in history. The fight, which took place in Las Vegas, was watched by millions of people around the world and generated over $550 million in revenue. In 2018, UFC fighter Rose Namajunas shocked the world by defeating longtime champion Joanna in a thrilling match at UFC 217. The win cemented Namajunas as one of the top fighters in the sport and earned her the UFC Women's Strawweight title. In 2019, Andy Ruiz Jr. shocked the world by defeating heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua in a stunning upset. The fight, which took place at Madison Square Garden in New York City, saw Ruiz become the first Mexican heavyweight champion in history. Both boxing and MMA have had a significant impact on sports and popular culture. These sports have produced some of the most iconic athletes and moments in history and have helped to inspire a new generation of fighters. In addition to their impact on sports, boxing and MMA have also had a significant impact on popular culture. These sports have been featured in countless movies, TV shows, and video games, and have helped to shape the way that we think about combat sports. That's all the time we have today for our episode of podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of boxing and MMA and learned something new about these iconic sports. As always, thank you for listening. But before we go, let's give a quick shout out to some of the memorable fighters and boxers we mentioned in this episode, including Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Conor McGregor, Rose Namajunas, Anthony Joshua, and Andy Ruiz Jr. And of course, we can't forget about the trainers, promoters, and others behind the scenes who have helped to shape these sports over the years. Finally, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your favorite boxing and MMA moments? Who are your favorite fighters? Let us know by leaving a comment or sending us a message on social media. We always love hearing from our audience. That's it for today's episode of podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.